Hello, today I'm going to be showing you how to work these granny square Christmas tree ornaments. Actually, you don't need to just use them as ornaments. What you could do is you could do an extra couple of rows, leave off the little hanger here and turn them into coasters, or use them as gift tags. Whatever floats your boat, you can really do something with these. Now, these have been designed specifically for the Scrappy Holidays CAL that I'm hosting. It's Christmas in July CAL. But if you would like to, you can also create squares for blankets and cardigans and, you know, all of the things with them. So they don't just have to be used for Christmas. So the first thing to note with these is that specifically for the ornaments, and so that I didn't get a floppy ornament, what I did was I used 4 weight yarn from my scraps and a 4mm hook, which creates a much denser material. So if you're using it for something else, you might want to consider using 4 weight yarn and a 5mm hook just to get the drape, particularly if it's going on a garment or even a blanket. You might want just a little bit more give in it than what there is here. So you can see that each row in the centre is worked in a different colour because this is a scrappy project. So I have used yarns that I've raided from my stash and my scrap bucket, except the last 2 rounds. There's 5 rounds in total for this particular project, but the last 2 rounds I did in the same colour just so that it gave a nicer finish and a nicer edge to your finished project. So let's get started with working our first round. So for this one, I'm going to use gold and kind of a burgundy coloured yarn that I have in my scraps. Both, I believe, are Karen Simply Soft, but you can see I'm literally just using the little balls I've got from leftover projects. Now, to start row 1 or round 1, you can chain 4 and then slip stitch to the first stitch to join to create a little circle that you can work into. Now, depending on your tension, you might need to chain 4 or 5 just to get a hole big enough to hold 12 stitches. However, because this project has so many stitches in the first round, I'm actually going to show you how to work a magic ring for this one. So you need to have a decent sized tail on the end and get your first 2 fingers. We're going to lay our fingers over the top of this yarn, just gently, and then we're going to wrap the yarn round once. Notice that I've done it on an angle. Whoops. I've done it on an angle rather than straight across because that just makes it a little bit easier for me. Then we're going to take our tail and we're going to wrap our yarn around our fingers once more to the top and make sure it crosses that first strand on our fingers. And I'm using my thumb here to hold the tail still. Then we'll take our hook. Remember, it's a 4mm for this one. And we'll insert it underneath that first strand and then over the top of the strand that we're holding with our thumb. And we'll loop that second strand across the top of our hook and pull through. And that is our magic ring completed. Now, to start off, we're going to chain 3. And when we work into the magic ring, we're going to make sure we work under both of these threads because that's what will make the ring tighten when we're finished. So we've got our chain 3 there ready and waiting to go. So we're going to work 2 double crochets into that magic ring. So a double crochet is a reminder, which is a treble crochet in UK terms. Yarn over, insert your hook into the magic ring, making sure you go under both of those loops, yarn over and pull through. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we'll yarn over, pull through 2 loops, so we're left with 2 loops on our hook, and yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So now we only have 1 loop on our hook, and that is our double crochet completed. So once more, yarn over, insert your hook into that magic ring, making sure you go under both strands, yarn over and pull through for 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, so you're left with 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And then we're going to chain 2. So a chain, we're literally just going to yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook. That's our first chain completed and our second chain completed. Then we're going to work 3 double crochets and a chain 2, and we're going to do that another 3 times. So there's our first double crochet, making sure we're working across both strands of that magic ring. And the second double crochet. And the third double crochet. And then chain 2. And we'll do that twice more. So I'll meet you at the end of this round. So that's my last set of 3 double crochets completed. I'll do my final chain 2, and then I'm going to tighten the magic ring closed. So it should just be a matter of giving the end of the ring a tug. I've obviously caught that somewhere. There we go. Sometimes it just needs a teensy bit of muscle putting behind it, just because sometimes it doesn't flow very well through the hook, but I have to say that's not very often. And then we're just going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. If you've done it too tightly, like I appear to have done, you can simply insert your hook between the first and the second double crochet and slip stitch closed. And then I'm going to chop my yarn, because remember we're changing colours every round for this one, and fasten it off. So there is round 1 completed. So you can see we've got 4 sets of 3 double crochets, which I'm going to, sometimes I might refer to them as granny clusters during the course of the video. Sometimes I might say 3 double crochets. It's whatever's easiest at that point in time to explain things to you. And we've also got 4 chain 2 spaces. So that's round 1 completed. So for round 2, we're going to attach our second colour to any of the chain 2 spaces around. Attach it any way you would ordinarily. I like to just pull up a loop, because my chain 3 is going to lock that into place pretty much. And then we're going to chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet. Then we're going to work 2 double crochets into this same chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 2 and work another 3 double crochets into that same chain 2 space. And then we're going to skip this granny cluster from round 1, and we're going to work 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into the next chain 2 space. So there's my 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same chain 2 space. And you can see that this is creating a nice corner for our granny square. And then we're going to miss this granny cluster, and we're going to do the same in the next chain 2 space. So we'll be working 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all in this same chain 2 space. And then we will repeat that once more. So we'll skip the next granny cluster, and in the last chain 2 space we'll work 3 double crochets, a chain 2 and 3 more double crochets, all in that chain 2 space. To join the row, we're going to work a slip stitch into the top of our starting chain 3. And then I'm going to snip that colour and fasten off. And this is what round 2 is looking like so far. So for round 3, I'm going to go back to my gold, I think, for this one. And again, we're going to join our new colour to any corner chain 2 space. And we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to work 2 double crochets. And a chain 2. And 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. And then we're going to work between these 2 sets of granny cluster stitches. So we're going to skip the first 3 double crochets, and in the space here between those 2 sets above the granny cluster from row 1, we're going to work 3 double crochets. And then we'll skip the next granny cluster, and in the next chain 2 space we're going to work 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into that same stitch. So there's my first 3 double crochets, chain 2, next 3 double crochets. So you can see they've all been worked into the same stitch. Then we're going to look for that gap between the next 2 sets of granny clusters, and we're going to work 3 double crochets into that gap. And then we're at the next corner chain 2 space. So we're going to work 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, all in that same chain 2 space. And then we have our 2 sets of granny clusters there. So we're going to work 3 double crochets in this space between 2 sets of granny clusters. And then we're up to the last chain 2 space. So we'll work 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in that last chain 2 space. And then we've got 2 sets of granny clusters left. So we're going to work our 3 double crochets in that space between the 2 sets of granny clusters. And then we're going to slip stitch to the top of our starting chain 3 and fasten off. So this is what we're looking like at the end of round 3. So we have 2 more rounds left, and I'm working mine in the same colour, which is this burgundy. So I'm going to attach my yarn to the first stitch of any side on the square. So that's double crochet stitch, not the chain 2 space. And I'm going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work a single crochet in each of the 9 stitches across the top. So for this round, we are not working the spaces, we are only working into these double crochet stitches between the corners. So we'll single crochet into that first stitch, and then single crochet into each stitch across. So a single crochet, insert your hook, wrap your yarn and pull it through. So you've got 2 loops on your hook, wrap your yarn, pull through both loops. And that's your single crochet. So we'll do that for the rest of the stitches around until we reach that chain 2 space. So you should have 9 single crochets by the time you reach that chain 2 space. And then in the chain 2 space, we're going to work 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 more single crochets, all in that same space, the same chain 2 space. Whoops, I tried to do a half double there, not a single. Right, now here is where you need to be careful, because we've worked effectively 4 single crochets into that chain 2 space. It's a little bit crowded in there. So when you start working your single crochets across, make sure that you work your hidden stitch. So it might just be you need to tug a little bit to that side in order to get into that first stitch. So if you only have 8 stitches across the top between your corners, then you've missed that hidden stitch and you'll need to go back and work it. So we've worked the hidden stitch and we'll work a single crochet in each of the next 8 stitches. And then once we reach the corner, we are going to work 2 single crochets, a chain 2, and 2 more single crochets. And then making sure we hit that potentially hidden stitch, we're going to single crochet in that first stitch and each of the next 8 stitches all the way across to the next corner chain 2 space. And then we'll work 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets into that next chain 2 space. And we'll work a single crochet into the top of those 9 double crochets from the previous row. And then we're up to our last corner. So we're going to work 2 single crochets, chain 2 and 2 single crochets. And then we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet to join. And this is what it looks like at the end of round 4. So the final round is, I think it's kind of fun. So instead of working the crab stitch, which if you're comfortable with the crab stitch is a nice alternative, but I find that that's very hard going on my wrists. So instead we're going to have a go at the twisted single crochet. So we need to chain 1 to start. Again, it does not count as a stitch. And then we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull through, so we've got 2 loops in our hook. Then we're going to give our loops a little bit of a tug and add some height to them, because we're going to take our hook and we're going to twist it all the way around. That's a whole 360 degrees. And then we'll yarn over and pull through both loops in our hook. And we do that in each stitch across to that chain 2 space. So another couple of times, we'll insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. We'll give our loops on our hook a little bit of a tug to add some extra height there. We will twist our hook 360 degrees, and then we will yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook. If you have trouble pulling through, I would try and lift your loops just a little bit higher. So the next stitch, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, tug our loops, give them a little bit more height, twist our hook 360 degrees and yarn over and pull through both loops in our hook. And once more, insert our hook into that next stitch, yarn over, pull through, give it a tug and add some height to the loops on your hook. Twist our hook 360 degrees, yarn over and pull through both loops in our hook. And we're going to do that all the way up to the next chain 2 space. So I'll let you work that and I'll meet you at the chain 2 space. So here I am at my corner chain 2 space, which you can't see very well, but it is there. And we're going to work 2 twisted single crochets into this chain 2 space. So there's the first one. And there's the second one. And then we're going to follow that process all the way around. So we'll twisted single crochet into each of the next 13 stitches, and then we'll work 2 twisted single crochets in the chain 2 space, and we'll do that all the way around until we're just 1 stitch from the last chain 2 space of the round, and I'll meet you once you get there. So here I am at the last corner, the last chain 2 space before the row where I started my twisted single crochets. So if you want to add your own little loop here, we're going to work 1 twisted single crochet into that chain 2 space, and then we are going to chain at least 15. You can chain it longer if you want a longer hanging, but I'll chain 15. And then we're going to go back into that same chain 2 space, and we're going to work our twisted single crochet. Now this one might be a little bit more interesting because we've got that chain 15 in the way. And then we'll go into the next single crochet. We should have 2 single crochets left, and we'll work our twisted single crochet into the first one and our twisted single crochet into the second one, and then we can do a simple slip stitch to join. Now for this you might find it a little bit trickier to slip stitch into the top. That's absolutely fine. It looks absolutely fine to go into the bottom of the stitch and work your slip stitch from there. And then fasten off. And the only thing left to do is to weave in your ends. So this is what my granny square looks like, finished before I've sewn in the ends. Now just before I leave, you all have your own ways of sewing in the ends, but I wanted to show you how I sew in the end on a magic ring, because I know a lot of people are worried that it comes undone. and you end up with a big hole in the middle of your project. I've never had a magic ring come undone yet. So I'm just going to thread my yarn onto my darning needle. And what I do is the way the yarn goes, so this one has gone around that way, I'm going to go around that inside circle and thread it through once more after I've tugged it as tight as I need it. So that's all the way around once. Then I go back round the other way, but I also make sure when I'm inserting my hook, I go through the middle of the yarn if I can with the needle, so that the yarn actually threads through itself as well. And then I'll go back through. And then I will go up and down a couple of the double crochets for the colour yarn that I have. And when I think I've done enough, I'll remove my needle and snip the end. And then that is my magic ring sewn in. So the only thing left for me to do is sew in the last couple of ends. And then my granny square tree ornament is ready to hang. I do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. If you would like to join in the CAL, please feel free to check out the links in the description. You'll find everything that you need there. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and that way you'll be notified of all of the other patterns that are coming up in this CAL over the course of the next 5 days. And if you would like to join in the CAL and become part of the community, please check out the links below. There's also a link below for the written pattern, which will be forever free on my blog post. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye.